Now, when EastEnders Gray and Chantelle moved into Walford last year, they seemed like the perfect couple. He was the handsome lawyer, family man with a charming wit and a big heart. She was the sassy stylist who adored her two children. But when the door closed on #1 Albert Square, it turns out life was far from perfect, as Chantelle was suffering a campaign of mental and physical abuse at the hands of her husband. The story reaches a dramatic conclusion tonight, and in a moment we'll chat to Toby-Alexander Smith, who plays Gray. But first, let's take a look at the dark side of Walford's Mr Nice Guy. And some of these scenes may be upsetting. And Toby joins us now. Hi, Toby.
Hi there, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
We're fine, thanks, Toby. I was just thinking, what's really striking here is that EastEnders have chosen to, reveal ahead of time what happens tonight, that Chantelle is killed. So they haven't left it on the usual kind of soap cliffhanger. That was obviously a deliberate move.
It was, definitely. I think they were coming from the angle of, what's going to have the biggest impact. Obviously, we could have left it as a surprise, but ultimately it could have been a massive trigger for a lot of survivors out there watching it. And if there's anyone at home who's sitting next to someone who is potentially a perpetrator as well, that could be very scary and very dangerous. So I think it was definitely the safest thing for them to do.
I mean, this storyline has been going on for a year, very slow build, again, which I imagine was deliberate. Has it been a real eye-opener for you?
Massively, massively. I mean, 18 months ago when we were given the parts, I think we all think we know something about domestic abuse, but to what capacity? And this is a conversation I'm having a lot with Women's Aid that, for me, certainly over the last 18 months, I've been educated into the whole scope of, the complexities of the behaviors of a perpetrator and the difficulties of trying to get out of a relationship like that. And, every single month being in EastEnders, I've learned something new. And I think it's an education that everybody needs to be having.
And very difficult for you as an actor having to inhabit that place.
It is. It is. I mean, as I say, again, that stems a lot from the research and trying to keep the character as real as possible. You see his behaviors on paper and you just think, how could anyone be so inhumane? It's very difficult to comprehend that kind of behavior. But then you speak to Women's Aid and, I'll go back to my research and actually it is very much a real mirror of human behavior that's happening out there far too often.
Toby, it's interesting that you say that because I'm sitting here and, I know you're just acting that role and I'm kind of wincing inside because I've been through the domestic violence and I'm just wondering, how has the public's perception been to you where you're separating from the character to who you actually are as a person? How have you found that?
Initially, it was very difficult. I didn't quite prepare myself initially when you see that first clip of inside the house and who he really is. And I think it was a very big shock for the audience and a massive sense of betrayal as well, because obviously they were this picturesque, perfect, Instagram happy family. So to see what, he was doing behind closed doors was, like I say, it was a big shock. And so it got very loud on social media. People struggled for a while to differentiate between me as an actor and the character Gray Atkins, which I think there's still quite a lot of and potentially a lot more to come. But to be honest, I've got my head around that. And if it means that people are just talking about the storyline, they're calling the character out on his behavior, and if it's getting people out of these domestic relationships, then, it's fine.
I mean, you've become a real advocate, Toby, haven't you?
Well, the more I've worked with Women's Aid and realised the lack of awareness that there is out there, I mean, it's just shocking. And, seeing the statistics as well in this day and age, it's so hard to comprehend. 3 women every 2 weeks. Not enough is being done. And so when I was speaking to Teresa Parker at Women's Aid and she suggested becoming an ambassador, I just thought it was a fantastic opportunity to speak out more. And I think it's important not for just women to speak out about this, but men as well. It's an issue with society and it's many people should be talking about it as possible.
And you really believe that it should be taught in schools, don't you?
Massively, I do. I think, going back to the ambassador role, I also think there's a massive message for young boys to see men standing out and, giving strong, supportive messages about, domestic abuse. But again, also back in school, I think it's so important. There isn't a system in place at the moment where children are getting taught about what healthy relationships are, and that's where it starts.
I think it was just quite brilliant the way that we, for those first few months, we, as you said, we just saw the perfect image. And I agree with you about teaching it in schools, because red flags, you know, if you don't know they're coming and you're with somebody incredibly charming and the whole of the neighbourhood thinks that there's somebody amazing, it's very difficult to come forward. So has anybody got in touch with you? Do you think, are there people getting in touch with you saying this has helped me, just, you know, realise what's going on?
Massively. And I think that's the thing. That's, you know, they say when you do a soap and a storyline, you get given a platform.
Yeah.
And it's only through doing this that I've realised that that actually is a case, that people feel like they can reach out to you and tell you their stories and thank you for giving them the courage to speak out, and they can relate to it. And, you know, it's so rewarding. I mean, I'm just an actor.
Tough, though, as well. That's a bit of a burden as well. Do you find it difficult?
I don't, because I know that the support's there. You know, I've got Women's Aid right by my side, and they're brilliant, and Teresa Parker's been brilliant. So if there's anything that comes my way that I'm not sure how to deal with, you know, I've got them there. I've also got the team at EastEnders as well.
And I think I'd just like to compliment you on your amazing performances, the pair of you as well. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, Jess is absolutely sensational in tonight's episode, I have to say. And we've both sort of come back after lockdown and just absolutely thrown everything into the last sort of couple of weeks, particularly this evening. So, yeah.
And I know, Toby, that you have been recognised for your portrayal, as Denise said, of the character, and you're up for an award. But I can also feel from what you're saying that for you the real importance is to highlight this kind of behaviour and the need for us to try and address it. So, Toby, listen, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you today. You've seen the number up during that chat with Toby, but just to remind you, the 24-hour National Domestic Abuse Helpline, it's free to call. 0808 2000 247. 0808 2000 247. And you can see that episode tonight, EastEnders, BBC One at 8:30.